So I've had a request from from someone I know who watches my videos that they want to know how to set up just a simple worm bin. And I want to show you how to do it while you're stuck at home for almost nothing if you have just a couple things already on hand. So one thing that's good is to save your junk mail because worms leak paper. Save boxes you get because they'll love cardboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shred most everything I have, but there's really nothing wrong with just ripping it up into shreds like this by hand. The worms will like it just fine. It'll just take longer to break down. It's not as good at bedding as shredded newspaper, but it works just fine. So I'm going to shred all mine, and then I'll show you how to set up a really simple worm bin. So my shredder only does 6 pages at a time. It's not the best shredder. There's better ones that do up to 25, and those are better at doing cardboard. I'm going to try some cardboard in this. I don't think it's going to shred really well though. I may just have to rip it up into pieces, which is fine. But there are better shredders I'd look into if you want to do this. If you want to get a shredder for this, I'd look in like a 25-page shredder that can basically shred stacks. Those seem to work the best, and I've heard good things about them. Now, another thing people are probably going to say is, to make sure that you pull off all the plastic and packing tape and stuff like that. And you totally should. It's not a bad idea to. I've done this enough times that I just don't now. I don't really waste my time on it because the worms aren't going to eat it. And when I sift for castings later, it's going to come out in that sifting process as unprocessed stuff, and I can just throw it away then. So just to save time, I just go straight to shredding. Let's try a little piece of cardboard on this. I don't think this shredder can handle it, but it's worth a shot. All right, we might be all right. Another thing people will say, I'm probably gonna get a lot of comments about this, is packing tape. You do want to rip it off. If you got the time and you got the patience, go for it, rip it off, throw it away first. This one's easy to get at, so I'm gonna rip it off. But if I'm doing a lot of this stuff, I just go ahead and shred it right through. And like I said, when I sift the castings later, it comes out with the castings. There are some studies that show that plastics and microplastics in soil will hurt worm reproduction. And that people kind of take that as any type of plastic. And it's probably true, but microplastics are a lot different. They're really small and can actually get into the worm's digestive system and cause a lot of issues. Bigger chunks like this shredded tape, the worms aren't going to eat it. It's not really going to get in their digestive system, especially if I only have it in their worm bin for a couple months to a year. So it's not going to break down and kind of powderize enough that they're going to be eating it. So it's not going to cause them too much harm. So if you have the time, rip your tape off, get your plastic off your letters and stuff like that. If you don't have the time, go ahead and shred it. Get it out later when you sift. It'll come out just fine. So even though you totally could just shred your cardboard into small little, small as you want to tear in pieces, the worms will like this just fine. Just have to get it damp. They'll live in there. They love corrugated cardboard. The smaller particles you can make your bedding is what I found to be the best. In fact, I talked to a guy who does this, and he's looking for a shredder that can almost powderize cardboard and paper because he thinks that's going to be his best bedding. So, and he's done it a lot longer than I have and has a lot more experience. So if that's what he wants, after years more experience than I have, then it must mean something. It must be pretty accurate. All right, that's getting kind of full. So let's go over to the bins and I'll show you how to set up the bin. Okay, so ideally you want 2 bins, and that's because you're going to want to create a drainage area by stacking the 2. And I like these cheap ones from Home Depot because they're like $8 each, and they stack and they give you a couple inches of space down inside there. What I've done once before is I built a 2x4 spacer that sits on top of here, and then this one will sit on top of that to give you more space down in there if you want it. That's only if you're going to be feeding a lot of wet stuff and have a lot of drainage. And you shouldn't if you do it right, but sometimes you can. Worms are versatile, and you can do whatever you want. Sometimes the bedding's wetter and it drips more. And what you want to do first, before you stack all these, before you put anything in, is the one you're going to put the worms in, just drill a bunch of holes in it. I like to use the smallest drill bit possible. This one is, I don't know, like a 1/16 inch bit. It's really little. But you can use 1/8, you can use 1/4, you can use whatever one you have. The worms, if they're happy, aren't really going to go out the holes and escape. This is just for airflow and drainage. And so you're going to do a whole bunch on the bottom first and do it on the lowest part of the bin. So put a bunch in the middle, because once this is full of stuff, it's going to bow down. So you want a lot of drainage holes in the middle where everything's going to flow through. Whatever bin you're using, just put the holes on the lowest part of the bin. You're focusing on drainage right now. So you can see I put quite a few holes, especially in the middle where I know it's gonna sag down. You can't, like I said, you don't have to do super tiny holes like I do. I just prefer it. You can do larger holes if that's the only drill bit you have. Just make sure you do enough to where you're confident that all the liquid that could collect in the bottom is going to drain. You want it to drain really well. You don't want a soupiness at the bottom here. Otherwise, your worm's going to get sick. It's going to create some anaerobic environments. It's going to get acidic. It's going to get too wet. Worms just won't like it. They could end up dying because of it. So make sure that your bin is going to drain really, really well. Now, if you're not going to do a bin inside another bin, the way I like to do it, and you're going to have this on the ground outside an area that it can drain, put some holes on the side here so that so that it's not so that the water has ways to go out the side as well. In fact, I'm going to put a couple just down along here. I like to do it down here because it aerates that bottom layer of the bedding and the worm environment. So that's what these side holes are all going to be for. They're more for airflow more than drainage. So about 2 inches from the bottom, I'm going to put a whole bunch of holes. All right. And I also like to put a bunch up top. Again, this is just for airflow purposes. Now, in another video of mine, I'll let the plastic out of there. In another video of mine, I mentioned that you don't have to put holes, and that's true if you're going to be really careful with your bin and make sure that it's balanced and has the right moisture levels and is well taken care of and well tended to. You can do a worm bin without any holes in the bin and no drainage whatsoever if you're careful and if you take care of your worms and watch them closely. This is kind of the I don't want to call it idiot-proof way, but that's the only term I could think of right now. But this makes it to where your worms are a lot less likely to be killed on accident. It's going to give them a lot better environment naturally. So, all right, now let's get to adding the bedding and making it good, making it ready for the worm. Okay, when you do the bedding portion, it's going to start getting heavy. So you're going to want to actually put your worm bin together the way you're going to have it, and maybe even have it where you want to have it, where you want it to be kept, because like I said, it's going to get heavy, it's going to get damp, it's going to get full of a little bit of stuff. So it's going to be a two-person job to carry it, or one strong person. So we'll get started how to mix it here. So you got your bin. Here's some of our shredded paper from earlier. Now you want to get it damp. I like using a kind of a weed sprayer or bug sprayer. Lets me get good coverage. And you want to kind of mix it around in there. You want to make sure it's all damp. And then you're going to want to let it sit for a little bit and kind of soak up, and then test it again. And the dampness level you want is you want to be able to take this stuff and squeeze it, and then you want it to have like 2 or 3 drops come out when you do that. So it's going to take a little bit. This stuff actually soaks up quite a bit of water. Now, use gloves if you want, 'cause it's going to stick to your hands as you get it wet. You really just kind of want to give it a good soak and then let it sit and then test the moisture level. So I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to go shred more paper because I'm going to start I have a lot of worms to put in here to start out with. So I want to get it at least 6 inches deep or so, and then we'll get it going. Well, I overheated my shredder, so this is going to have to do. That's not a bad amount. It's not a bad start. So I have this pretty well soaked. You can see if I grab it a little bit and squeeze it. You actually can't really see on camera really well, but got a couple drops. You want to fluff it pretty good. Now, since my shredder, which I said earlier is not the best shredder, isn't really good, I'm going to use a different medium that I've used to start bins before, and that is pet bedding. It works awesome. So I'm going to add this to my bin and get it wet. It's just, you know, it's fiber-based, it's basically paper as well, and it soaks up really good, makes a great bedding. Only problem is it costs like $5 a bag, so this is not the low cost or almost no cost option, but it does work really, really well if you're... Okay, I've got my bedding all mixed in and pre-dampened. I use some of the pet bedding with my shredded paper and newspaper. So now I'm gonna grab some worms. So I'm taking worms from my current worm bins. You're actually watching a video of me splitting my worm bins. So this is something I'm needing to do for a while. So you see I only took 2 shovelfuls, filled this. See, I'm using my copper tape, keeps them from escaping. That's not required, it's just something I like to do. It's something I found works really good. So I got, man, I'm kind of digging around in here. I've had them in here for a day or so. Ready to go. I maybe have 1,000 worms. There's a lot of food mixed in here. Overall, I'd say about 1,000. So if you buy worms, they're going to come in a bag with peat moss, and they're going to be a little bit dried out. These worms are basically ready to go, and a lot of this is still food. So I'm just going to dump these in. See if I can do this one-handed. A little bit heavy, 2 shovelfuls of stuff. So I'm going to dump mine in, and that's going to be their food layer. Still got a few worms in there. I'll get them out. So I'm going to spread this out. When you dump your worms in, you kind of want to spread them out because they're going to want to ball up. Yeah, this is a good amount of worms to start. So most of these will dig down to the bedding. There's an old piece of pineapple back there. Like I said in another video, I feed my worms everything. All right, so when you get your worms, you can order them online, search red wigglers or compost worms. You'll find dozens of sites, places selling them, and they're all about evenly priced. But yeah, search online, compost worms, red wigglers, European night crawlers. You'll find dozens of vendors. Those are the type of worms you want. You want the red wigglers, or European night crawlers. There's a couple other types. Do your research, figure out what type is best for you. Or if you don't have money, go look out in your garden. Look up online what the worms look like, how to identify them. Go out in your garden, dig a little bit. Where I'm at, I can find red wigglers in my garden if I look hard enough. Even though it gets cold here, they're essentially endemic. They live here year round. They don't all die off. Further north, they don't tend to survive the winters. Don't be afraid to do it for free. Don't be afraid to go search for worms. Like I said, I started with 250, and here I am with a huge amount of worms. Able to split them into different bins and get them going. There's no use rushing a worm bin unless you have a lot of food to get rid of really fast. It's okay to start with just a few hundred worms and save some money and just take your time. Worms aren't fast. Worms are going to take their time. It's okay to start small. One thing you might want to know though is worms, when they put in a new environment, especially coming from like a major farm where you're buying them from, these worms are going to want to run. Even these ones here, moving from my outside bins into here, they're going to want to run because worms are stupid. Even though they still have this feed and stuff that they can eat, they're going to start wandering up the sides, and that's why I use my copper tape. They don't like to cross over, especially when it's on the vertical. I don't know what it is that's bothering them about it, but it doesn't kill them or seem to hurt them long term, but they will not cross over it. So if you want to invest in some copper tape, it's great for new worm bins, keeps them from escaping. On like places like Reddit and other forums and stuff like that, that seems to be the most common complaint is, why are my worms getting out? Why are they still escaping? I just put them in 3 days ago and they're out. It's just because it's new. It's a new environment and they want to know what's going on. They want to explore, they want to see, and sometimes they explore the wrong direction and they end up out of the bin and they dry up and die. So I recommend the copper tape. But lastly, what I like to do after starting worm bin is just put a damp piece of cardboard on top. It does also help keep them from running. They like to stay underneath here where it's dark, because I use these yellow lidded ones. A little bit of light comes through. Piece of cardboard or damp paper will keep the worms feeding on the top. And that way, if you're putting food underneath there, I'll lift up this, put the food underneath there. I don't know, in my other video of my outside bins, you saw I had pizza boxes out there. That's why I do it. Just kind of give them a little extra home, a little extra cozy area to hang out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry this video got kind of long. It was going to be a really quick video. And I hope this helps some people know how to quickly start a worm bin. This was all done. I didn't buy a single thing for this. I guess I did buy them all just a long time ago. I didn't buy them specifically for this. These totes were just laying around from cleaning my shop and getting rid of stuff. And the worms I had from other worm bins, and the paper was just junk mail, shredded. So you can start with next to nothing. And like I said, you can go search for worms in your garden if you want and start really, really cheap. But I see a lot of people scared to get started. They're just, don't worry about it. Just do it. You might make mistakes along the way, but you'll learn, and everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different based on their location and environment and climate. Just get some worms, make a bin, and get started. And worms are pretty hardy things. I mean, I guess they're hardy, but you've seen videos of me killing them over and over again. But I'm also trying new things and trying new experiments and doing things that I hadn't done before, and that's just going to happen. So if you want a worm bin, if you want to compost all your kitchen scraps and all your organic waste and stuff like that, just get started. It's a lot of fun. It's a good hobby. It's good for the environment. It's good for the climate. It helps keep waste out of the landfills. I like telling people to do it, and I encourage everyone I find that is even slightly interested in it to do it. And a lot of people I know have, and it's made me pretty happy. Anyway, I've hoped I helped some people get over the fear of that first step of just jumping in and going for it. Anyway, thanks for watching.